Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Hidden Figures. The problem with most biopics or historical dramas or films about real things that happened is they always have to have a part where they include information so the audience can know it. Because if they don't have that in there, regardless of if it works in the film or not, the audience won't know it. And since more people will probably see a movie than watch a documentary or watch History Channel or read a Wikipedia page, presumably they have to put it in because they feel the audience should know these things. Hidden Figures has the luxury of the fact that I didn't know this before. And most people in the audience had not heard of the story of these women before seeing this film. So that whole idea of rolling your eyes at countless other biopics that you already know and you've heard a million times and they have to put in because four people might not know isn't here in this film. And this film is able to do a lot more and be a very safe but very digestible kind of a movie that we don't really have anymore. This is the kind of film you can take grandma to and you can take a 5-year-old to, and they're both going to enjoy it. Hidden Figures is actually really good at it. It's very good at being a very audience-pleasing biopic kind of a movie, and it's able to do that mainly because this story hasn't been told ever and you didn't know about that. In some ways it sort of reminds me, and I'm not trying to be sexist or go, hey, there were ladies in history in it, but it reminds me of something like A League of Their Own. A League of Their Own is a good movie, but one of the reasons people were interested in it because they're like, I didn't know this before. I knew about it, sorta, but I didn't really know about it. And now I can really know about it in this poppy, digestible movie that's for everybody and is also really good and has talented actors behind it. In a wonderful way that I've seen schools take a whole trips of kids to see this film on a field trip. It works as a movie you could play in school. It works as just an entertaining night out at the movies. And most of the time, I don't like biopics. I don't like this kind of Oscar baity kind of material. But I like Hidden Figures a lot. And I like the message it's telling you. I like that it's telling you about what these women did and the discrimination they faced and all the amazing things they did that we didn't even really know about, or I didn't know about, and I think most people didn't know about. You can both be educated by it and entertained by it in such a wonderful, amazing way. It kind of reminds you when Hollywood was making these kind of films and how wonderful they could be. It's very hard to dislike this movie because it's very good at what it's doing. Most of that is because of the cast. Most of that is because it's able to tell a story that no one has really done before. But the direction and the director isn't very good, really, because of such great actors and the information. It kind of makes itself a lot more than this director can usually do, seeing his last terrible film, St. Vincent. This is so much better on so many different levels, and Hidden Figures makes this kind of really great biopic kind of a movie that we don't get anymore, and kind of reminds us what made those so great and maybe why we should have some more of those again. 3 African-American mathematicians who work at NASA, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, are all friends who commute together to work and work at NASA right around the time of the space race. They work in the human computer department, and basically, if you don't know what happened at the time, is because they needed so many different kind of mathematicians and people who could do numbers, they would hire people from different races, even at a time that was very discriminatory, just because they needed people who could do math, and NASA was very known for doing that at the time. They had a department of black women who were very good at math, and Katherine Johnson is brought into a big department led by Kevin Costner under a space task force to help figure out the math that has never been done before to shoot a man around the moon. At the same time, Octavia Spencer's character of Dorothy Vaughan is trying to figure out how to use an IBM computer, a big 1960s computer, because she knows it's going to take away her job. Janelle Monáe's character of Mary Jackson is trying to make herself more of an engineer and take more classes, and petitions the court to be able to take those night classes so she can become a bigger engineer. As these 3 women prove themselves as mathematicians and fight institutional racism and discrimination to show that they're incredibly talented mathematicians that the space program and NASA really need. Hidden Figures is directed by Theodore Melfi, who I mentioned at the beginning. Directed a film I really didn't like and most people didn't, called St. Vincent. That wasn't very good. One of the things that Theodore Melfi is good at is casting, which is kind of like being a good director, but without, actually directing a good movie. And I think a lot of directors have done better versions of this kind of a biopic before. I don't think this is an amazing version. It might be just a better version because in terms of kind of mainstream fare, this is something we rarely get anymore, but I still think it's very good. I think the direction's probably not the strongest point of the film, but what really does work is the three actresses in this film who really bring to life these three amazing women who we didn't really know about before: Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Katherine Johnson. It's kind of more interesting because I didn't know much about this. Apparently it does take certain liberties with the truth, despite that we're all taking this in as like, oh, I'm very interested to know about this. Apparently these three women didn't really like commute to work together and may have known each other but weren't like best buddies like this movie portrays. The character Kevin Costner was actually kind of an amalgamation of like three or four people apparently. So it takes liberties with it, but it takes liberties in ways that kind of makes it work very well as kind of a populist, kind of big mainstream kind of biopic type of fare. There are things that I don't necessarily have a problem with. I think maybe if you are interested and you're really inspired by this, maybe actually get a book on one of these people. Well, it's based on a book called Hidden Figures, so you should probably read that. It takes liberties, and I think in some cases, like this film mainly centers on Taraji P Henson's character, Katherine Johnson, and more about that story, and I find that that's probably the most interesting story, and I think the film centers on that, and then has Octavia Spencer's character of Dorothy Vaughan, her quest to be taken more seriously and be a supervisor and things like that. And that is given enough attention. But Janelle Monáe's character of Mary Jackson, who wants to be an engineer, that story seems to not get as much attention. I wonder if it would have been a tighter film if they had cut that part out. It felt like something they weren't really giving as much attention to. I often wonder, like, did that really help the movie? It didn't hurt it in terms of I was never like, oh, this plot again. I actually really liked it. It did feel like they weren't really giving it as much attention as the other two plot lines in this film. And it feels like a director who is really taking advantage of the fact that he's cast really talented actresses in his film, and a lot of talented actors throughout this film that really make this film a lot more interesting than it probably would be if you didn't have great actors in it. This is a film that works really well because of its cast. That's something certain directors can get to work very well, is like have a good enough cast that can just propel the movie far past what it really should. That's a structure issue, I guess, that I had with it. While I was watching it, was like I kind of would forget about her for long stretches of the movie, and then it would come back to her and I'd go, oh right. And even the engineers she worked with, the parts you see in the trailer, and it was like, if you were a white man, would you like to be an engineer? And she was like, no, I'd already be one. That's like all you see with that guy. You see him in a few scenes after. Maybe there was more with him and they cut it out, I don't know, but like in the movie I didn't see him that much. They show scenes like she gets along with them, that seems to work out okay, I guess. Like they show the scenes of her coming into the thing, same with Taraji P Henson's character of Katherine Johnson, which she's coming into the office and being introduced and stuff, and like the awkwardness of it. But you don't really get that developed full enough. Maybe it was a smarter move in terms of its editing and cutting that out, but that plotline did seem to not get as much attention necessarily. But the acting in this film was really great, particularly the three leads. Taraji P Henson is an actress I always really love, and I wish she got more parts because she's amazingly talented. I actually really liked her. Some people don't seem to like her as much. Some people have noted that the script doesn't add a lot of complexity. Unfortunately, it's mainly her having problems with where the bathroom is, which speaks to a lot of institutional racism. Just like the institution is against her, that she's going to have to take more time and not be able to get as much work done because she has to walk like 40 minutes to go to the bathroom and back. But she's really good. She's kind of not playing typical Taraji P Henson like Cookie on Empire, more louder, kind of expressive characters that she's normally played, but she's a very talented actress, and just because those are her trademarks doesn't mean she can't do certain things. Octavia Spencer is another very talented actress. Even in films I do not like that Octavia Spencer is in, I usually like Octavia Spencer. She is just amazing as always, and she was very good in this film. To me, I think I like Taraji P Henson more, but I think Octavia Spencer does a very convincing job of being a supervisor, being in charge, showing how talented she is. There's certain parts where you can tell like you don't actually know what she's doing, and she does it so confidently you believe it. That takes a really talented actor to do. There's a lot of scenes with the IBM thing that I just believe it, and later someone pointed out like you don't really know what she's doing. Like she could be moving it in the complete wrong direction, but I bought it, and I didn't think about it for like a little bit after I saw it, and then I went, oh my god. The new up-and-comer is Janelle Monáe, who I've only seen her in this and Moonlight, that she's able to hold her own against Octavia Spencer and Taraji P Henson. It says a lot about her as an actress and an up-and-coming actress. I'm really excited for her in a lot of future films, but she does another really good performance. She was great in Moonlight. She's good in this as well. She commands the screen, has such a presence about her, particularly in this film. It just shows like a real star quality quality to herself. And the fact that she can hold her own against two very talented actresses and lead this movie with them, she's not like the lesser of the three. They all hold their own equally, and that she's able to do that speaks very highly of her, frankly. Kevin Costner is downplaying it a lot. There's a lot of scenes in this film that emotionally work and dramatically work, but if you actually think about them, they're like, wait, did Kevin Costner just discover that there was racism or something? And you're like, that's kind of dumb, but the movie convincingly does it so well and knows how to play it in a certain way, particularly with the performances. You buy it, and then later you're like, wait, hold up, what? It's kind of in a way that I think works for the movie. It's not a complaint. Usually I'd complain about this. I think Kevin Costner plays it well, and even the guy who played John Glenn Powell, I thought did a really good job. And Mahershala Ali was barely in it, and he's kind of just playing the cookie cutter love interest. I like that this shares two actors from Moonlight, but it shows like how little roles we have for black actors, or how many few black actors get cast on things, probably. And I think Pharrell Williams does a good job with the score with Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Waltschufs or whatever, of mixing a traditional score with kind of more of an 60s kind of R&B type of thing, sort of Motown, sort of just 60s R&B, obviously like a 2017-16 version of that, and doing it with the score that didn't feel inappropriate, which I think it could get close to doing. It really added to like the momentum of this film and how much fun it was. I think this is the kind of film that normally it's kind of lamer, but it's really good at being a lame biopic, and it's really empowering, and it shows a side of history that we often do not get to see, and it does it with its heart on its sleeve. I guess the end part with the John Glenn stuff is as close as it gets to doing the annoying, like, we're giving you this information again type of thing that we've already seen in things like The Right Stuff or something, which this, I don't think The Right Stuff even talked about the women who were the focus of this film. I don't see a lot of films that can do that, and I think that's one of the biggest things I'm taking away from Hidden Figures. That is, it kind of telling both most of America and probably the world about these women and what they did and how interesting it was, and making a film that everyone enjoys to kind of like, in the way that most people want to give those facts, to go, oh, well, they won't know it unless we tell them in a big Hollywood movie, and this is the big Hollywood movie to do that. Certainly like a film like Birth of a Nation tried to do, but sort of failed because of a lot of other stuff, but of taking African-American story that's never been done in more of a populist Hollywood way that lots of audiences can see, and kind of presenting in that way to get you more interested in black history. Hidden Figures actually does that far more successfully. I think actually Hidden Figures might overall be a better made film than Birth of a Nation. I don't know if I want to go that well, maybe a little, but it understands how to tell that story and tell it to a wide audience and get that wide audience into it. It's a theory that I see fail so often and be so boring, and a thing I so hate. And I really was kind of like going into Hidden Figures like, okay, this is a big movie, I'll see it, whatever. And I actually really liked it, and I had a good time with it. But what Hidden Figures is trying to do, and within the genre it's trying to do it, Hidden Figures is actually rather good. And I think that is something that, as someone who watches a lot of movies and watches different kind of movies, I have to look at a film within its own genre and look at what it's doing and how it does that successfully. And I think Hidden Figures does that amazingly well and shows you a story that should be told in a way to get you into it. It's probably more progressive to do a story like this. You know, a lot of people said, I would much rather see a documentary. And frankly, make that fucking documentary, because I think now people will see it, but you got them interested in it in that populist way. You didn't have to sacrifice story or character to do it. They changed things around, they changed things about the real life story, but you get the idea that these women did different things, that NASA employed these women and gave them the opportunities to a certain degree, but how that institutional racism was holding them back, and how they eventually helped get a man around the moon and a man on the moon, and how hard they had to work to get that major scientific event to happen and major event in human history to happen, and how they should be a part of that history. The wide age range I saw in the theater was one thing, but the film I saw as a film I could show to a child, and I could show to my grandparents, or I could show to my parents, and everyone would have a good time. I think that shows the power of Hollywood and doing something progressive in a way that might seem light, that might seem like digestible and disposable and just like a good nice time at the movies, but gets you to understand something about history and someone who had been completely ignored. And that's really what Hidden Figures does so well. People are going to see the story of these women and be able to see something that they didn't know before and learn something about it, and have a nice, very digestible, very populist kind of biopic that we never get to this kind of a quality again. It's not the most amazing thing in the world. There are certain various problems with it, but overall I think it very much does what it means to do. I might not like this director and I might not like this genre, but I have to admit I actually quite liked and had a good time with this movie. So if you have seen Hidden Figures and you would like to talk about it, then comment below. in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.